everyone. Can you hear me in the back? Enrique, you got me? You all got me in the back. Very good. Well, I have to start by saying that it's so lovely to see you all. I think after the year or so that we've had, having all of you in the tent here, the weather like it is, Helen walking up the aisle, honestly, it all feels a bit like a dream. But before I go on with my speech, I should mention a few people who couldn't be here with us today. My 93-year-old grandfather, Tony. My Uncle Andrew and his partner, Jarrett. My dad's cousins, Sandy and Jeffrey. And my parents' friends, the Grahams. All of whom, you don't have to clap everyone. All of whom, for health or COVID-related reasons, have had to stay at home today. And while, of course, Helen and I will miss all of them, I think the overriding feeling, for me at least, is one of elation that we're able to spend our special day with so many people that we love. So thank you all so much for coming. And I am quietly confident that despite the absentees, we'll still get through the champagne allocation. Although, and those this is directed to know who I'm talking to, please do not take that as a challenge. From the summer of 2020, when Helen and I first got engaged and it felt like COVID would be over in a matter of weeks, to the end of last year, I remember particularly Boris's Christmas cancellation pertinently, when we basically put wedding preparations on hold. It's fair to say it's been an interesting time to be engaged. But through all of that, and through the ups and through the lockdowns, and indeed throughout Helen and my relationship, there are a few people who've always been there to support us, who it's impossible not to mention in this speech. The first are, of course, Helen's parents, Phoebe and Arthur. Thank God. From allowing us to use their beautiful garden as the venue for our wedding reception, to all their tireless work in making everything look as fantastic as it does today. It's fair to say that this event, very literally, couldn't have gone ahead without them. So thank you so much. Welcoming you all into their home, Phoebe and Arthur show the same spirit of kindness and warmth that I first felt when, as a shy, stick-thin 19-year-old, I arrived down Princeton Lane, hoping to persuade Phoebe and Arthur that I was good enough for their youngest daughter, Helen. In truth, my nervousness on that initial meeting was tempered somewhat by a previous dinner I'd attended in London with Jenny and Lizzie, Helen's older sisters, Helen and Phoebe, at which, whilst I spent the majority of the meal worrying about my table manners, Phoebe seemed satisfied once I confirmed that I'd indeed taken Maths A-level. But my initial nervousness on arrival remained, and it's indicative of Phoebe and Arthur's kindness quite how quickly I felt at home here. It's always been such a pleasure for me in the almost 8 years of Helen and my relationship to come to Princeton. And for me, it's so fitting to have the wedding reception where I get married to Helen in this garden, because it feels like it's played a very big part in my adult life. The welcoming spirit that Phoebe and Arthur have always shown me has been reflected in how I've always been treated by Helen's older sisters, Jenny and Lizzie, their husbands, Henry and Adam, and of course, their children, Billy, Rosie and baby Pippa. Although I must say, I'm not sure I've got past baby Pippa yet. The second people who it's impossible for me not to mention in this speech are my wonderful mum and dad. Mum, Dad, you've always been there for me and made me feel like everything is okay. I know that I'm not really one for emotion to my cost, but I really do appreciate everything you've done in the build up to today, but more importantly, everything you've done for me throughout my life. It's hugely appreciated, every last bit. I often think that if Helen and I can foster as happy and loving a home as I was brought up in, then we really have done fantastically well. And Iona, Oliver, I just couldn't ask for kinder siblings in the two of you. And it's such a treat that we all get along so well. To all my family, I love you so much. Before I go on to the final person I want to talk about, I'd like to mention my fantastic ushers, Giddy, Michael, Ed, and of course John and Oliver. At different stages of my life, you've been great friends and forms of true support, and all your help preparing for today, and today, particularly Ed, hugely appreciated. And to Joe, my best man, you've always been a true friend to both Helen and I, and your kindness and support, not just in the build-up today, but throughout the period we've known you, and I'm sure going forward, is something that we both really treasure. And last, but most certainly not least, is my darling Helen. For those of you who don't know, Helen and I met on our first day at Girton College at university. I, sporting peroxide blonde hair and thinking uni was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me. Helen, fresh from her gap year, working at HSBC and travelling in India, thinking that she was quite worldly wise, and that said peroxide blonde fresher was frankly pretty annoying and obnoxious. We chart the history of how we grew closer slightly differently, but suffice to say that there was some flirtation towards the end of our first year and over the course of that summer. And then soon after our return, at the beginning of second year, one of us, maybe me, expressed an interest in the other, maybe Helen. To which the suitor received a kind but firm rejection. And that was how things stayed for a couple of weeks. But the suitor picked themselves back up and agreed to go with the Girton gang to a night at Cindy's nightclub in Cambridge, which was famously fun on a Wednesday night. And during that evening, after a couple of drinks, Helen and I found ourselves standing by the bar, and the suitee turned to the suitor and, in so many words, said that they would consider them as a potential partner. And so it was. Let's move beyond that. So, that a week later, I found myself walking hand in hand back from the local pub in Gerson with Helen after our first date. And almost 8 years later, I now find myself walking hand in hand with Helen back down the aisle as man and wife. When we first got engaged, people often asked me when I knew that I wanted to marry Helen. And in truth, I think I planned to marry Helen for years. But if I had to pick one moment when the idea crystallised in my mind, very fittingly, I think it was in this very garden at the last wedding when Jenny and Henry, Jenny, Helen's older sister, got married. Throughout the day, people were making jokes because Jenny and Henry were getting married on one weekend in that year. The following year, Lizzie, Helen's other sister, and her now husband Adam were getting married on the same weekend the following year, so the joke went, to keep up the tradition, I'm sure you two are getting married on the same weekend the year after that. And whilst we laughed along throughout the day, I remember thinking, well, if we weren't so young, I'd love to. And Helen, as I stand here today, I honestly can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. You are the warmest, kindest, most loving person I know. You're annoyingly clever. And today, as with every day, you look absolutely divine. But in truth, I think the reason that I'm most excited about my marriage to Helen and our life together is putting aside all of, Helen, your amazing qualities, of which there are many, and as banal as it sounds, we just get along so well, and it makes every day with you a pleasure. And so, with that, I'd like you to all raise your glasses to Phoebe and Arthur, to my wonderful mum and dad, and above all, to my darling wife, Helen. To Helen. Next up is my mum.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I am James's mum, Rose. What a fabulous speech he gave. I'm so proud of him, and I'm so proud of who he's chosen to marry. It's very exciting. I've got one thing before I do what I'm going to do. My dad, who has been mentioned several times already, has sent a message which I've written here, so I'm going to read it out. This is from Tony Eggleston, my father, to James and Helen. This is his message to you today. I have never known a better matched pair than Helen and James. I therefore send them my congratulations with the knowledge that they will have many decades of happiness with their family. It's from my dad. On the 4th of January 2020, my beautiful daughter Iona got married to John, who actually has taken the baby home to put him to bed. And for reasons that I actually can't quite remember, I decided to write a song to sing at their wedding, which was an interesting choice. So when James and Helen announced their engagement, I said, would you like me to write you a song for your wedding? Thinking that they'd say, oh God, no, that was a bit embarrassing. And they said, yes, we would like our own song. So I'm now going to sing a song for James and Helen's wedding day. Oh, wait, sorry. You all will have received one of these, I hope, and I'm hoping that you might be able to help along the way. So, yeah, sorry, Michael, take it away. Helen Smith of Portsmouth Town, with 2 sisters and a loving family. She loves games and she is fun. Grew up strong and grounded by the sea. Then she met James Valentine, loving family, a sister and a brother. He loves games and he is fun. You'll agree they are perfect for each other. Come winter, come summer, come high days and holidays, come daytime, come nighttime, come sunshine and rain. Oh, it became certain when they met at Girton that James was for Helen and that Helen was for James. They had to spend some years apart, Helen up in Scotland, James in UAE, but they had no change of heart. Their love grew stronger, as you can clearly see. Then blossomed lockdown love, and James decided to ask Helen whether she would consider spending their lives together. Come winter, come summer, come high days and holidays, come daytime, come nighttime, come sunshine and rain. Oh, it became certain when they met at Girton that James was for Helen and that Helen was for James. Helen answered yes, of course, and that is why we are gathered here to say we wish you so much happiness on this very, very special wedding day. So please raise your glasses high, and then there's just one thing left for us. Listen for the key change, then join in with the final chorus. Come winter, come summer, come high days and holidays, come daytime, come nighttime, come sunshine and rain. Oh, it With apologies for the terrible singing, by the way, but there we go. Joe, over to you.
Yes. I don't know how to follow that. I don't have a song. Good evening, everyone. I have the impossible job of being the filling in this Smith and Valentine sandwich. Hello. But I'd just like to add my thanks to everyone who's come from so far and wide, to the friends and family that make days like this so special. Now, I was very quick to accept the kind offer of Helen and James to speak at their wedding, mainly because they're not people you can say no to very easily. But I did warn them this is not something I've done before. True to form, Helen has given me some very sage advice in the month since, whereas James's words of wisdom have been, "Oh, grow up, you'll be fine." Cheers, James. A lot of people have told me it's traditional to stick to the highlights, and sure enough, that's where our story starts. Because Highlights was the short-lived nickname that James had acquired during his first year to university. A self-proclaimed blonde bombshell who was a 10 out of 10, he had caught the attention of a few girls down the route at the old girls' college. They were clearly drawn to his peroxide mop, as it was then, or perhaps to his grasp of medieval history, who knows. Like moths to a burning flame, they soon decided to leave James well alone because he was too much of a hazard. Luckily, James had by then developed a thick skin. His first forays into romance had been challenging, and this in spite of a very supportive group of friends from school. So, destined to be a bachelor for his first year of university too, he quickly, sorry, I've lost my place. Talk amongst yourselves. So, destined to be a bachelor for his first year of university too, he quickly became the lad of the college, and liked nothing better in those early days than to assume the control of the microphone, the speakers, on his JBL, the speakers, and his iPod Nano. James's passion were those learnt from an early age. Rap music, football, out-of-date pesto, and teasing anyone within earshot. Soon enough, Helen would outshine all of those. But it's fair to say that it was not necessarily love at first sight. Whilst history is littered with countless examples of musical masterpieces or epic poetry done in the name of love, Helen and James's courtship began with 4 special and carefully chosen words. You up for it? It was James who had uttered them in the strange surroundings of a deserted nightclub smoking area, and for some reason, Helen initially turned him down. Cupid's call was not to be delayed for long, however, and what had started with a flirtathon during their time on the Freshers Committee in the summer of 2013 and some unplanned one-on-one friendship dates finally came to fruition on the eve of Halloween. Helen had actually fast-tracked herself to adult status already with a gap year after school. Now, for somebody who dislikes spicy food, avoids long flights at all costs, and revels in home comforts, far-flung India was the obvious destination. She returned after 3 months, having a great time, with a slightly more iron stomach, but more importantly, from some friends for life, and some of them, I think, are here today. I'm just going to shout out the Like James, Helen's roots can be traced back to those firm foundations of family and close friends. Her sisters, where are they? Lizzie and Jenny, who I think we have to thank for her voracious competitiveness at board games, continue to be a source of inspiration and admiration. So too do Arthur and Phoebe, and indeed the newer little rascals in the family. Well, I guess I can't spend too long talking about Adam and Henry. And there have been times when those safe ports of love and wisdom, which family are there to provide, have been sorely needed. Because Helen and James's story has not only been one of plain sailing, as no two lives spent together can be. There have been challenges, long distance and phone calls in Edinburgh and Abu Dhabi, working on top of one another through a pandemic, difficult times in your careers, things that require hard work to work. And yet, here we are, ready for a new and exciting chapter in their lives. During our third year, and as a somewhat inspired distraction from the torpor of exam term, Helen declared that she was going to record a series of desert island discs amongst our friendship group. Channeling her best Kirsty Young, Helen took to the mic like a natural, guiding her revision-weary castaways through an odyssey of music and memories. The first episodes were hugely successful. They gained a cult classic status. A major snag hit, however, when it was James's turn into the studio. Helen, understandably, had high standards for her show, and in spite of his best efforts, his answers to her tear-jerking, hard-hitting questions were, and I quote, utterly rubbish. A minor tiff ensued, and tragedy of all tragedies, the recording was forgotten and eventually lost, never to be seen or heard of again. So it's a great shame that we never got to hear James introduce his Eurotrash classics, or indeed admit that his luxury item is a moth-eaten maroon jumper that he's owned since he was 12. It's also a great shame that we never got to hear Helen's version, so happy was she to play the host. And this got me thinking, what would Helen and James do if they were stuck together on a desert island? I'm sure you can all picture the scene: crisp white beaches, sapphire blue waters, tropical palms swaying in the island breeze. And then we see James, half naked, crawling through the thick undergrowth, on the hunt for wild goat's cheese. Meanwhile, Helen gives up with her fire building to perfect her rendition of Toto's Africa on a giant conch. James, returning to see no fire built, takes up a piece of flint and, with his very well practiced method, twizzles it ferociously in his hair to catch a spark. With the fire lit and the evening upon them, perhaps they grow merry off rum cocktails and reenact their favourite scenes from high-budget BBC dramas to pass the time. The truth, however, is that they would both be in paradise, because that is what James and Helen have found in one another. Two souls who would welcome being shipwrecked, knowing that home is in fact in the company and presence of their best friend and partner. That's not to say that they are indivisible. Indeed, James and Helen's greatest strength is that they are not any more or any less than the sum of their parts. They are exactly that. Two wonderful individuals with a unique and brilliant bond. Today acknowledges and celebrates that bond, but in truth it's always been there and will continue to grow in the months and years ahead of them. Speaking personally, to be present at the marriage of one of your best friends is a truly special occasion, and I couldn't ask for anything more. But to be here at the union of two of them is the privilege of a lifetime. The 9 years that I've known Helen and James have coincided with the happiest of my own life, and come to think of it, that is not coincidence at all. Ladies and gentlemen, please may I ask you to be upstanding and to raise your glasses, wishing them the lifelong love and happiness they both deserve. to James and Helen.